How did Eminem go from being a GOAT contender to one of the most mocked rappers in the culture?
You hear me? Shut up.
Times have definitely changed, because if you go back 10 or 20 years ago, there's no way the rap game would have tolerated this much Eminem slander. Instead of fans praising his new single Houdini, people are ruthlessly dunking on it. And while M's legendary status used to be solidified, cultural commentators are now debating if he was ever a GOAT to begin with.
Eminem, overrated, underrated?
I say slightly overrated.
So how did this even happen? Ever since he popped out with My Name Is way back in 1999, M was a lightning rod for controversy. He became the biggest selling rapper of all time, the top selling artist of the 2000s, and is considered one of the most feared, unhinged lyricists out there. The kids loved him and politicians hated him. But in recent years, the new generation and the internet seems way more invested in canceling Eminem instead of bigging him up. So what changed? What was the moment that really turned his longtime fans against him? Which rappers have jumped on the bandwagon to trash him, and who still really has his back? Let's start from the very beginning. How did M get so popular in the first place? A lot of people don't know this, but Eminem's rap career had a very rocky start. In fact, he had a whole other debut album called Infinite that barely sold. Dude was a walking definition of a struggle rapper.
During that time, everything just started. It seemed like it was just crashing because nobody was listening.
Infinite sounds nothing like the Eminem people know today. In fact, a lot of critics said he was biting the styles of New York rappers Nas and AZ. While he was definitely talented, there wasn't a lot that really set him apart as unique. His lyrics focused on the struggle of trying to raise a newborn daughter and provide for his partner while working minimum wage jobs.
I come home every single day from working double shifts and stop along the way to pick you up a couple gifts.
I come inside and you pretend you miss me while you kiss me, then you diss me. Classic M. Infinite was only distributed locally. Eminem pressed up about 1,000 copies and sold them out the trunk of his car. He put everything he had into that record, but the mixed reactions and lack of sales stung him badly. Infinite was supposed to be his big breakout moment that kickstarted his career, but instead, it went nowhere. Even though he wrote Infinite to be radio friendly, DJs turned down playing the record. In fact, M claimed that DJs dissed him for being white, saying, "You're a white boy, what the f are you rapping for? Why don't you go into rock and roll?" Eminem channeled that frustration into making angrier music and would come up with the alter ego that would make him famous, Slim Shady.
My name is Slim Shady.
By the time Dr. Dre discovered him, M had tapped into a totally different style. His new demos were more violent and confrontational. For example, on Just Don't Give a F, Eminem rapped about sexually assaulting the women's swim team when he was just in 8th grade. Dre lit up when he heard the demo. He was no stranger to controversy. He started his career with NWA, making anthems like F the Police. With Dre's cosign, Eminem went from being the white boy no one wanted to touch to the protégé of one of the most iconic rap producers of all time. And then, Slim Shady hit the music industry like an atomic bomb. With his breakout single, My Name Is, M established himself as being totally different from every other rapper out there.
My brain's dead weight. I'm trying to get my head straight, but I can't figure out which Spice Girl I want to impregnate.
His music was instantly confrontational. He was accused of homophobia and misogyny, with politicians outright naming Eminem as a negative influence on American society. And the kids ate it up. The United States Senate had a whole hearing about incendiary content in entertainment. Lynn Cheney, the wife of Vice President Dick Cheney, testified, calling out Eminem by name. She claimed she was at the hearing to specifically name names and say exactly what's wrong and to ask individuals to be held accountable. And with that, here was a name, Marshall Mathers.
He is a violent misogynist. He advocates and his mother in one of his songs. He glories in the same song in the idea that he might any woman he comes across.
You know what they say, controversy sells. Eminem would go on to release chart-topping album after album, and he didn't stop there. This man won Grammys, starred in his very own movie inspired by his experiences as a struggling battle rapper, and became the first rapper to ever win an Oscar that he didn't even bother showing up for. Not only that, but Eminem branched out even further by signing 50 Cent after he was blackballed by other record labels. M's cosign helped turn 50 Cent's debut album into a blockbuster success and only widen M's fan base. At a certain point, M really looked unstoppable. Not only was he critically acclaimed, highly awarded, and moving major units, but his provocative songs didn't feel like anything else out there. But even that, That's not all. Eminem also built a reputation as being one guy you do not want to start beef with.
Nobody got no beef with Eminem. And I'm not even gonna say nothing bad about Eminem. Cause way too much stuff rhymes with rock, right?
M came up in the battle rap circuit, and those same competitive instincts fueled his rise to the top of the industry. M was that kind of dude who just did not give a f***. He called out names of anyone he didn't rock with, from Limp Bizkit and Britney Spears to NSYNC and President George W. Bush. His willingness to name both celebrities and public figures on record made him notorious. Plus, his beef tactics made him legendary for saying some of the most out-of-pocket shit on his records. His famous feud with Ja Rule culminated in him painting Ja as a jealous addict. When he battled the rapper Everlast, he made up a parody version of Tupac's Hit 'Em Up, where he made fun of his op's heart condition. And when he went against his Detroit rivals Insane Clown Posse, he brutally ripped them to shreds on Marshall Mathers with some, let's just call them choice slurs.
Plus I was put here to put fear in to spray Fago root beer and call themselves clowns cause they look queer.
When Benzino, the owner of The Source, a legendary hip-hop magazine, started attacking him, Eminem responded with multiple career-ending diss tracks like Nail in the Coffin and The Sauce. Benzino was so brutally embarrassed by Eminem that he's still responding 22 later with songs like Rap Elvis. Through it all, M quickly established himself as the guy who would spit the wildest, most foul, venomous bars in existence if you violated him. When Mariah Carey mocked him with the hit single Obsessed, M's response leaked her private voicemails to him, attacked her then husband Nick Cannon, and got very specific about some of their alleged sexual experiences. And Mariah didn't poke Eminem again. Nick Cannon was also shocked into radio silence. M's willingness to battle just about anyone made him not only highly feared, but also extremely respected, and he was the one guy who would always want the smoke. Heavyweight rappers like Jay-Z have sung his praises, calling him intelligent and one of the best. They even went on a stadium tour together. Lil Wayne has collaborated with M multiple times, with Wayne admitting that he was scared the first time they worked together, calling M a monster at rapping. But then, everything changed when Eminem dropped his 9th studio album, Revival, in 2017.
Yeah, this thing is awful. Light 2.
There was actually a lot of buzz for the album too. M's lead single, Walk on Water, went way left field by featuring Beyonce. He teased a more political angle because he dropped multiple anti-Trump bars in the lead up to the album. And it was obvious that the label was putting serious money on a top dollar marketing blitz. But when Revival dropped, it bricked. And I'm not talking about sales, because M always sells well, but both fans and critics absolutely trashed the album. People said that it sounded dated and washed, and that all the provocative content that M used to get so much praise for just sounded kinda corny now. The reception to Revival was so bad that M has spent years since defending the album and attacking people who talked down on it. Now, people have critiqued M's music before. He's had divisive projects like Relapse and Encore in the past, but Revival was vilified on a whole another level. And since then, a lot of fans have gone from calling M one of the greatest ever to just straight dunking on him whenever the opportunity presents itself. Professional critics called it unlistenable and a disaster. The biggest example of that was Joe Budden when he went on a rant mocking the album and calling it trash.
So for this to look like this, I'm putting this on somebody in his team, because this is disgraceful. I hate it. I hate it.
The whole boogeyman reputation that M had built in the last decade and a half just vanished, which is crazy to think about. Even wilder is that it opened the floodgates for a lot of new rappers to trash him. Once upon a time, everyone was universally afraid to go toe-to-toe with Marshall Mathers. But by the time Revival dropped, people were openly comfortable with dissing him. After Eminem delivered an anti-Trump freestyle on BET, Vince Staples called it trash. Earl Sweatshirt gave an interview where he said, if you still follow Eminem, you drink way too much Mountain Dew and probably need to come home from the army. Tyler, the Creator, who had actually toured with Eminem once and cited him as one of his biggest influences, repeatedly dissed his music as horrible. The Game, who used to be affiliated with Eminem and praised him for years as one of the best rappers alive, began trashing M in interview after interview, eventually releasing a 10-minute-long diss track called Black Slim Shady.
I used to think Eminem was better than me.
So what you saying right now?
He's not.
Machine Gun Kelly put out a diss track called Rap Devil, accusing Eminem of blackballing his career. Even Nick Cannon decided to start dissing M again. Now, while M responded to every one of his attackers, you gotta admit that the perception around him was way different than it was before. Here's the real question though. Is it all the hate around Eminem really about him falling off, or has the world just became way more woke than it used to be?
But then he just tried to stay relevant by reviving these old things of his career, then just didn't really work and just became, kind of like unimportant at some point.
Eminem was always controversial. That was part of his appeal in the first place, but it also made him into the best-selling rapper to ever touch a microphone. All these years later, people have a lot less tolerance for Eminem's more provocative bars. In some ways, you could even say that people just don't care anymore. One of the biggest criticisms about M's new music from both fans and critics is that he's recycling the same content that felt cutting edge back in the early 2000s. Instead of being a rebellious young rapper, a lot of people just think of M as a washed up edgelord trying too hard to be relevant. After the whole revival debacle, M dropped a surprise album called Kamikaze where he addressed all of his critics directly. On the song Fall, he spit a controversial Tyler the Creator diss where he called him a homophobic slur. He got a lot of criticism over that and later admitted he had taken things too far, saying, "In my quest to hurt him, I realized I was hurting a lot of other people by saying it." But Tyler the Creator, for his part, wasn't offended and the line didn't bother him. Tyler actually said, "Don't get offended for me. We were playing GTA when we heard it, we rewound it and we're like, oh," shrugged, and then kept playing. Basically, he brushed the whole thing off and acted like M wasn't even worth responding to anymore. Another reason why so many people in hip-hop seem to have lost respect for M's music is that he started to apologize a lot. Besides him walking back from dissing Tyler the Creator, fans have pointed out that M doesn't have that same I don't give a attitude that made him famous. Instead, he keeps walking back or even censoring his lyrics on songs, and it's cost him his outlaw image. M even seems to be trying to recapture that old magic on his new single, Houdini. The whole song is meant to be about M trying to reconcile what his old self would say about today's culture, and in the process said some stuff that pissed some people off.
If I was to ask for Megan Thee Stallion, if she would collab with me, would I really have a shot at a feat?
Oh, I just realized. That's funny. The whole thing is obviously the kind of wordplay M is famous for, but it's also referencing Meg's shooting at the hands of Tory Lanez in 2020. A lot of news outlets and commentators took the line as a diss, saying that M was deliberately poking fun at Meg for being shot. Others defended the bars being classic Slim Shady material, saying, yeah, it's irrelevant and maybe crossing some lines, but the song's not really meant to diss her. In the same track, M also said, my transgender cat is Siamese, he identifies as black and acts Chinese, and called R. Kelly's favorite group the Black Guy Peas. A lot of these bars seem primed to rile people up, and social media definitely lit up with a ton of criticism.
Honestly, if you unironically listen to this grandpa geezer ass rap, bro, you're f***ing cooked.
The New York Times called the song desperate, while others said that Houdini was just an attempt to recapture his glory days. So now that he's attempting a huge comeback, is a new album gonna be a return to form or another total break?
I'm expecting something conceptual on here, and when he get in that bag,
yes,
Mel.
The album's actually titled The Death of Slim Shady, which sounds a lot like M is trying to mark the end of an era. This could be his very last album. Now that he's 51 years old, M is definitely in the twilight era of his career. Jay-Z at 54 hasn't dropped an album in 7 years, and Andre 3000 at 49 abandoned rapping to play the flute. And meanwhile, is still obsessive about trying to prove he's the best even though he's middle-aged. While Houdini stirred plenty of controversy, a lot of hardcore, longtime M fans seem to actually really like it, calling it a throwback to his more playful songs like My Name Is and Without Me. By going back to being funny, M is trying to undercut all the jokes that have been piling up on him since Revival dropped. Even though the younger generation seems to have plenty of Eminem haters, there's still a lot of younger rappers who are on record as being huge fans. Artists like Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, X, and Juice WRLD have all paid homage to M in the past.
How about Marshall, man? Eminem.
Oh, come on. Insane, dramatical genius.
In Doomsday Part 2, the video had cameos with everyone from Corday and Denzel Curry to Sway Lee and Tizo Touchdown. All these guys are looked at as possible torchbearers for the new generation. So M's legacy still has a ton of defenders, and he's recently been spotted with day ones like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and 50 Cent. That all said, the stakes are definitely high for this one. This is the first album that M has actually bothered to promote since Revival dropped, which means it's all or nothing. The death of Slim Shady is Eminem's final chance to win back his fan base. It's either gonna be the moment that shores up his legacy to come, or it's gonna be the nail in the coffin. There's nothing Eminem fears more than being a laughingstock for the rest of his career. If he doesn't manage to deliver here, the death of Slim Shady might be the perfect title for how his career ends.